Good morning. Today's date is March 25th, 2025, and this is a meeting of the Vermont Parole Board. Please note that the entirety of this meeting will be recorded. And I'm gonna move it over to the chair.
Thank you. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
First order of business is to look at the agenda. We have a few minor changes to add. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at that. And if you have, I would entertain a motion to add those items to the agenda.
Do you want me to list them? Hold on, do you want me to list them for the record, Dean?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So the additions are interrupts, SDMF for OOS cases, early discharge request, legislative update, and hearing facilitation / timing of hearings.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda with the new additions.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to add those items to our agenda for this hearing or this meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any deletions?
I'd like to delete the programming coding follow-up because I haven't had a chance to do.
Yep.
I thought I was going to have a chance yesterday afternoon and I haven't been able to.
Okay.
And do that next month.
Yep, fine. So the motion would be to approve the agenda as amended this morning. New motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Very good. And then the next item up is to review and approve our minutes from our last meeting. They were posted this morning, pretty straightforward. I looked at them quickly. I don't know if others have had a chance. MJ?
Quickly.
I have one change to the minutes in number 5, the parole board update hearings. The work group was listed as Patricia and Wayne. It should be Patricia, Tom, and Wayne as the work group. There was 3 members on that.
Yep.
Other than that, the minutes looked great.
Great. Any other suggested changes? Motion to approve the minutes as amended with that change in the committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tom, seconded by Sam. All those in favor of the changes to the minutes for 2/25/25 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous, and we'll move on to Kathy, and welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
Who's going to talk to us a little bit about the new risk assessment that DOC is adopting for women offenders. So, Kathy, welcome.
Thanks. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I was going to say, Kathy, I didn't share your PowerPoint with the board because I didn't know if you were going to play it during the meeting or not. So I just wanted to give you that heads up.
I'm going to attempt that, and that's why I sent it to you. If I can't make this work.
Yep. If you can't, let me know, and I can. You can just tell me when to click.
Share content. It's not working, MJ.
Okay.
Aren't I just supposed to do share?
You have to do hit share and then where the PowerPoint is, what screen it's on.
How about if you do it?
Okay, give me 1 second and I will take care of that.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Let me just. Oops, hold on. It played on a different screen. Can you all see are you looking at my PowerPoint or the presentation?
I see the PowerPoint.
Looks like the PowerPoint.
Okay, I was hoping to have the presentation. Give me a second. So that way you don't see all of
the slides. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm counting how many there are.
Not too many.
Just give me 1 second. I just gotta share a
Don't pay
different
any
screen.
attention to him, Kathy. He's from corrections.
I know. I mean, Kathy and I go way back to corrections.
I know.
Yes, we do.
More than I hate to think back to Woodstock here. Oh, that's horrible to think about. Oh,
How is that? That better?
Perfect.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Right. And you can go ahead and click.
Well, if it'll let me. Hold on, I gotta figure out. There we go. Maybe. There.
there it is.
Perfect. So WRNA stands for the Women's Risk Need Assessment. And this is a validated assessment for women in the justice system. And there's a lot of great things about it. One is that in addition to measuring criminogenic needs, it also measures women's strengths. So that's a nice addition to the assessment. Next, please. So the WRNA has 3 tools, probation, pre-release, and the institutional interview. It doesn't have a tool for detained women. So for PSIs, we'll continue to use the ORAS with women. Next. So this, along with the WRNA presentation, you get a little bit on gender responsivity. So just to, this might be familiar to you, but when we talk about being gender responsive, it's important to realize that there's a relational aspect to working with women in our system, and that we need to train staff on that as well as the tool itself, so that there's a relationship that's built based on mutual respect. Also, it's important to be strength-based so that when we're working with women, we can really identify what the strengths are and leverage those in the working relationship with her. Certainly being trauma-informed is a huge piece, recognizing that the history and context of personal abuse is very important in how women respond to services, how they respond to incarceration, really across the board. And also that we're being culturally competent and providing services that value and acknowledge the diverse cultural backgrounds of the women that we work with. Next, please. So one of the important things with understanding gender responsivity is recognizing that women come into the criminal justice system by very different pathways than men. So those factors include the victimization and abuse that they've suffered. And certainly we know that men in our system also have huge trauma histories. One of the differences in the victimization and abuse of women is that it tends to last into adulthood, whereas with men, primarily their victimization occurs when they're children. And also with women, that the abuse is often at the hands is perpetrated by people that are also saying to them that I love you and I'll take care of you. So that, partners, spouses, and which adds a different dynamic to the abuse. Relationship issues, mental health, substance abuse, and certainly the trauma often leads to substance abuse, which then often leads to mental health issues. Self-efficacy, understanding that they can care for themselves. Poverty. Oftentimes women are either like underemployed or don't have opportunity to be working in situations where they can take care of themselves and their family. And also parental issues. That women in our system tend to be more often the primary caretakers of children than the men. Next, please. So when we're working with women, there are some important principles that we need to keep in mind. Acknowledging that gender makes a difference is a huge one. Creating an environment based on safety, respect, and dignity. develop policies, practices, and programs that are relational, that will promote healthy connections with children, families, significant others, and the community. Address substance abuse and trauma and mental health understanding that connection through comprehensive, integrated, and culturally relevant services, and provide women with opportunities to improve their socioeconomic conditions. Establish a system of community supervision and reentry with comprehensive and collaborative services. Next, please. So the WRNA is a much longer assessment than ORAS, and there's many more domains, but the risk factors that are predictive for women are depression and anxiety, unhealthy relationships, psychosis, anger, child abuse, adult abuse, housing safety, and parental stress. So that the assessment interview includes all of those domains and then many others. So the scoring kind of shifts through and brings looks at those in terms of predicting either recidivism or risk factors inside. Next, please. And then the strengths that it measures are self-efficacy, family support, educational assets, and parental involvement. So it's again, a big difference between ORAS. It's really nice in working with women after you do the interview with them, which is pretty, it takes a while and it goes pretty deep. But to be able at the end of it, when you're reviewing the results, to also be able to talk about the positives in our life. And, I think that helps with that collaborative relationship as well. Next, please. So if you look at the top 4 criminogenic needs that we look at with men of criminal history, antisocial attitudes, antisocial peers, and antisocial personality traits, and the difference in what we're looking at with women with economic marginality, unhealthy relationships, substance abuse, and depressive and anxious symptoms. So quite a difference. Next, please. So, the important changes that, that I think it is important to implement in our system. We've never had had the tools that have been intended for women in Vermont. So it really allows for a specialized assessment. And, it only makes sense that if we're not measuring what's bringing women into our system, then we can't help them in terms of setting up appropriate services and meeting them for that place. So if we're not using a gender responsive assessment, we're getting information that isn't really going to be that helpful and weakens our ability to make just good decisions for women and to involve them and to also influence what services are both in our facility and in the community. And without that, we're not really addressing the needs of the women. And as I mentioned, having both the strengths and needs really helps develop that collaborative relationship to make the case planning much more effective. Next, please. So when staff are trained in WRNA, there's actually almost more of the training is really based on knowing how to work with women in a trauma-informed way. So some of the things that are taught during the training, to ask holistic, open-ended questions, build on trust, ensure that there's physical and emotional safety is important to have before even doing the assessment. So another difference with ORAS is that we don't tell staff to do the assessment like on their first meeting or even the second meeting, that you want to have a couple meetings with the woman to develop that relationship and some trust. It's important to recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma and actively prevent re-traumatization. So an example of that would be that embedded in the interview for WRNA, in the middle of the interview, which is very intentionally set there, there's 4 questions pertaining to trauma. And they're just yes, no questions that and we tell the person that up front. There's no expectations they're going to be telling about a specific experience. So before we even start the interview, we let the woman know that, that this interview will include some questions on trauma. And before I ask those of you, we're going to stop and I'm going to, make sure that you're ready to answer those questions. So the whole interview is just done in a very different way. And that we want to identify clients' strengths, goals, barriers, challenge, and life experiences that have impacted the behavior and meet the client where she's at. And it's important that we're honest about what information is mandated to be reported when we talk about it. So that's another thing that we set that up, prior to even beginning the interview. There's a question. One of the questions is asking them if they are actively having any thoughts of suicide. So that would be, something to point out to them, that if they respond yes to that question, that we're going to need to address that and take action on that and, not finish the interview at that time. Next, please. So we want to use the assessment to facilitate ongoing interaction and collaboration with the client around the assessment results tied to decisions made. Use the information to guide the creation and documentation of case plans and give choice where possible. So, as I said, there's a lot of domains in WRNA, and it might be that a woman could end up with like 7 of those domains being identified as needing to be included in the case plan. So what we do though is then let the woman decide where she wants to start. So, go over the results, talk about, wanting to do case planning with her on these areas, but it's okay for her to make the choice of where to start. And then, if she's still struggling, to come back and redo that and, maybe try a different angle or a different domain or a different service. So, and the intent is to regularly review the assessment and to be updating. So it's a working document that you're continually going over with her, and to collaboratively check in with the client to discuss if they feel that their needs are being addressed. And to make referrals and foster collaboration with community partners is also an important part. Next, please. So in terms of, community services, it's important for those of us that are using WRNA to build relationships and communication with community providers. And as we continue to build this, we want to use assessment data to identify gaps in services in our communities now, and then to, also be aware of where they do exist and make sure that the probation officers have those collaborative relationships with our community partners. And I see this as certainly something that's going to be continued, that we will be building on. Doing the assessments and getting the data is going to, really help inform this. So we're not there yet, but that's the plan. So that is the end of the slides. And I just wanted to give a little bit more updates on where we're at with it currently. So the implementation is being informed by the WRNA implementation work group, which is a group of DOC staff from across divisions. Since I am a division of 1 in women's services, it's important to have everybody's input around policy and data, and the field and facility are all a part of that work group. All of the Chittenden caseworkers are now certified in WRNA. So just recently, at the beginning of March, we told the caseworkers at Chittenden they no longer have to do the ORAS, and they will only be doing WRNA. And that was important for you all to know. So unfortunately, OMS, our offender management system, it's not incorporated in that yet, but that's that division has been working on the implementation for several months. And we hope to have that operational by July 1st. So for now, when casework, oh, yeah.
Sorry, Kathy,
that-
I was just gonna, I didn't know if you wanted me to ask questions as we're going or at the end.
It's fine to ask them now.
I didn't know because it's not up in OMS, has there been any direction to the caseworkers around how to include the Warner score into the parole summary?
No, there hasn't been. We did
Okay.
talk about that though, and I'd be interested to know from you all
Yeah.
how to incorporate it. They're just uploading the assessment and the scoring sheets and case plans into attachments.
Yep.
So how would you like them to do that? Should they just write it in? Can you write stuff into the
Yeah.
summary?
Do you want me to look at the summary to find the best place for them just to write in the score for now until we can get it populated in the assessment section?
That would be great. So there's 4 bands, for Werna, and there's only 3 for ORAS, and I don't know how, so the bands are low, moderate, medium, and high. And ORAS, I think, is just low, moderate, and high.
And high, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work for the board if I just
Yeah,
look at it
I
and
mean,
then let you all know where it'll be?
especially if
Sure.
we're not going to be looking at an ORAS overall score and the other assessments that are typically included, if the WRNA is in there, to know where that's at was going to be really helpful. And then
And I think
you
the
talk-
one thing, oh, sorry,
ahead.
Dean.
that's all
The
right.
other thing is there may still be an ORAS score that's appearing on the parole summary because that's automatically pulled. So if somebody's already had an ORAS and then they've had a WRNA, you're gonna have to take note that look for the WRNA in the summary where because I think that now will trump the ORAS, correct, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen
So
them
that would be pretty
conflict with
easy to
each
add.
other, Kathy?
Yes.
Sorry, Lee.
The research says that gender neutral tools or those intended for men often really over assess women. But we've been finding, more often than not, they've been pretty similar. So we're not really seeing that much discrepancy.
One thing that's
Um,
interesting too, Kathy, is you talked about in case planning that there may be a host of risk areas to be addressed, but the women in general will be choosing what direction to go in. Will that be included in the assessment? So we would know that here's the areas of concern, this is the direction we're going to go in, that kind of thing.
Yes, I mean, I think whatever is helpful to you, I can certainly give that direction. To make things a little bit more complicated, this isn't all operational in the field yet. So, we've been just sort of gaining ground where we can. We're in the process of contracting with the University of Utah, which is where this assessment lives, to do a train the trainers training, as well as to train another cohort of assessors. So currently we have 1 trained assessor in each probation office, except for Bennington. And the intent at the next training is going to be to add to that in the fields. There would be 2 trained in each field office. And it will be up to the field offices. I don't really think that people are going to go in the direction of having women only caseloads because the numbers often don't warrant that. So I think there'll be some combination of how that is handled in individual offices. So we had the training scheduled for mid-April, and then there was a glitch with the contracts and we're having to postpone it. I think the training will probably happen over the summer where we can then build on greater capacity in the field. So the other thing that we're in the process of changing, which hasn't happened yet, is the expansion of the use of case planning in the field for women. Because WRNA is very case plan focused. And there isn't any, it would be a waste of using the assessment if that information isn't used for case plans. And as you all know, there aren't that many women in Vermont on furlough now. So our hope is to expand using the case plan to probation and parole as well.
Right.
So,
That'd be good.
so that's all. I think those changes will happen when we get the next cohort trained, where we can really build on this. The policy 348, which guides field services, that has been updated to include WRNA, and that is in the final stages of approval. So it's not signed off yet, but it's probably just a couple weeks away. And that's going to be really helpful in the field to give staff more specific direction.
Right.
And yeah, so what other questions do you have? Tom?
Well, first of all, I'm getting PTSD, but as you can understand why. First of all, thank your dynamics with the men and women, the victim issues. I don't think I've ever had that explained as nicely as you did in all my years. That was very helpful. Thank you. Now, but the question I have, is there going to be a new program to go along with this new assessment that we have to see people complete?
At Chittenden, they are going to be in the risk intervention services. They are looking at changing over to gender responsive curriculum. So in the facility, that's easier than in the field. I think the field, this is my dream. So it's not there yet, but when we have 2 trained assessors in each office, I'd like to be able to kind of set them up as gender responsive, kind of content experts that can also help make those connections in the community with our community mental health partners that provide programming now. And to be that connection to them where we can have ongoing conversation about the data that we're, collecting from the WRNA assessment and, help involve them in being able to develop the services that might not be in existence now.
That sounds like another one. This is for people upon sentencing, correct?
Yes. Yep. They have to be sentenced.
So somebody gets sentenced with court and their minimum is up, we're going to be seeing them. The assessment would be done before the parole board would see them. Hopefully.
Yes.
Okay. You answered my question on the field sites. And the last one I have is this something that's going to be around for a while? I know sometimes the DOC does these assessments and they change it in midstream to something that's funded for. So once we get used to it, we'll still be there. It's my
I think my hope is that when people use it, they're going to find it's such a useful tool. I mean, I am certified too, so I have done it with a number of women up at Chittenden, and it's a totally different experience. And I know there's oftentimes a bad connotation in the department with working with women. Staff, feel like they're high needs and they require a lot of time. But the reality is we're not using the right tools with them to match up with the needs that they have. So it makes sense that that's not the most, collaborative really kind of relationship. And I hope when staff use it, they're going to realize that this really helps kind of get at, meet them where they're at, and that will be a more productive experience for both the woman and the staff person. But in terms of the department, I think, the challenge is going to be to keep people trained, and everybody's not going to get trained in this. It's certainly, you have to be able to believe in these principles and, want to make the effort to work with women in a way that sometimes we don't work with people we supervise, right? In that kind of collaborative, empathetic way. But once we start doing it, the research is really there that this is much more effective. And I think in terms of the other priorities in our department with our strategic plan, this really hits the mark. And to introduce it and put this effort into it and then let it go by the wayside would be a real a disservice to the women in our system.
Thank you. Very nice. That sounds like it's going forward in the right way. Thank you.
I hope so. Now, it's good to have the work group. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a different experience for me, and I think it's really makes a difference in having everybody has a piece of this outside of women's services, because it's going to take that for sure.
I have one more. I hate to ask this question. I think you think with this program to be staying in longer in the facility or less time?
It definitely should not be longer.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, again, maybe if we're addressing their needs better, they can move through the system more successfully. It's my hope.
Thank you.
One of the things that I thought that was important that you said was you talk about the positives with women. And I think that's important for women. More important maybe than men. I think women need the positive in their life.
Absolutely.
And for you to talk about it, I think reinforces, their behavior.
Right. And
So,
their
That's good.
that self-efficacy and their self-confidence, that all of that needs to be built up so that they can be successful. And certainly including strengths is a big part of that.
Yeah.
I talk about the new facility, and it also really aligns with all of this. The designs that we've seen so far, when we talk about a trauma-informed environment, I think we can do so much better for the people in our system when we create that environment. And we're not also, I think, collecting the data and understanding the principles better also helps guide the conversation as to what we want to see in the new women's facility. I mean, because we haven't had a facility built specifically for women in our state, but I also totally believe that we're going to learn from that experience about what will work better for the men as well.
Awesome. So Kathy, I'm just wondering, obviously risk assessment plays a big part of our decision making along with case planning and release planning. I'm wondering if when you're ready to roll this out and have it be part of everyone's decision making, it might be helpful for one of our in-person staff meetings to have a training. We've had that with the ORAS and BADC 99 in the past, to have one with Warna, where we go through what you're going to be assessing and what your domains are, so that when we see the final analysis, we'll have an understanding of what that really means.
Absolutely. I think that would be really helpful because it is so different.
Kathy, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you send around a blank copy of the assessment to us to look at, or is that something only DOC has access to?
The user agreement with the University of Utah is really very specific that we can't share outside the department.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to come and go over it with y'all and show it to you, because I think it really helps to reinforce what it
That'd
is
be
involved
helpful.
in.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Kathy, I can tell you as a mental health counselor, I am so excited at the thought of leading anything with trauma-informed care, because that's definitely such a big push now, but it's also a huge kind of big all-encompassing term. And so not a lot of people kind of can wrap their head around what that actually means and how to be trauma-informed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, so when these field officers are getting trained in this assessment, especially when they're using these trauma approaches and asking about suicidality and those types of things, what sort of training are they receiving? Is it in collaboration with mental health professionals that really can give specific things so we're not re-traumatizing when we're asking questions? And
The training is not provided by mental health clinicians. The Warna training in it of itself, when somebody goes through it, there's a fair amount of information about that, but it, admittedly not from a clinical perspective. One of the other things that we've done in introducing Warnock is to go to each of the field offices to do a presentation to the whole entire office. And that does include some trauma-informed ways of approaching things in a trauma-informed way. But room for improvement, for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard now to even, with the lack of availability of mental health professionals to kind of involve them in everything that I'm sure you would want to involve them in. So that I'm sure makes it even more challenging
Yeah,
for you.
it definitely
But
does.
I definitely think that, when I liked what you said about identifying who would be the people doing these assessments, because I think there are some people in every area that may also have a really difficult time doing these types of assessments because of maybe some of their own trauma history and asking about suicidality and the way that you ask those things, and you have to really have a comfortability with it. So
Yes,
I'm glad that it's not just, here it is, ask these questions, you're going to be doing this, so because that could go very badly. So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
so I'm glad about that.
Thank you. Other questions for Kathy? Well, thank you, Kathy, for your time this morning.
you,
It's very
Kathy.
helpful. Glad to see you're moving forward on this.
Thank you. And any questions, just send them my way, and happy to come back
Yeah.
and go over the assessment.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely follow up with something in-house when we're having a all aboard at Waterbury meeting.
Sounds good. Nice to
Okay.
see you all.
I see
You
Kathy.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Next up, we have our condition 16 update from the work group. Pat, Wayne, and Tom.
We have about, I'd say 10 to 12 different, I don't know what you'd call them, bullet points or suggestions. We probably need, can we have like maybe another month next staff meeting and maybe work on these a little bit more and then come back with what we have, finalized?
It
Sure.
might need to be refined a little bit
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's
with
fine.
an objecting old guy like me.
Yeah.
I thought that was
That's
me.
fine. Great. Anything else you need from us?
No, we did throw around the idea of once we get this done, maybe having a meeting with DOC and Dismiss and the Justice Centers and Transitional Housing and other parties that are involved and getting some feedback or just hearing what we're discussing. See how
So-
they feel about it.
So I have a suggestion. If we
Yeah.
can have, I don't know if it's possible to have these refined a little bit and maybe shared with all of us prior to the April meeting. We do have Gary Marvel, Cassie Renfrew, and Mark Devins coming to our next meeting to talk about the new risk confinement and the RSNs and so forth, and do general Q&A. I'm wondering if it may be, because Gary's now the Deputy Director of Field Services and Mark and Cassie are our field service operation managers, maybe it'd be a good time to maybe run it through them, but I don't want to, I'd like for all of us to be able to see it prior
Right.
to
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
seeing it, but I thought
That's
that
what
might
we
be a
had
good
planned.
Good idea.
idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we branch out into transitional housing partners and CJCs.
Well, that's what I meant. After we present
Yeah.
it to the rest of
Yeah.
the board, at some point, maybe we can talk
Follow
to
up with
everybody who's a partner in it.
Yeah, I was just thinking we have those resources coming in April. I didn't know
Okay.
if it's possible
Okay,
or not.
I'm sure we can do that. Right, guys?
Great.
Sure.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Thank you. No, that's a great start, and the timing will be good when we have that discussion with them next month, and then you can follow up after with the housing partners
Right,
and their issues, of course. Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
We could probably do a Teams meeting, just the three of us, or just somebody sets it up for us, make it, send the phone calls.
Yeah, I mean, if you want some help setting up a Teams meeting or anything, just let me know. I can set that up for you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
No,
probably
please.
what we'll end up doing next time.
Good.
Hi, Lori.
Great
Lori?
time,
Hey.
Lori.
Hey, good morning,
Hi.
Lori.
Just have two things. One, what Kathy just talked about, and probably, I'm hoping it's not the case, but perhaps what you hear in April, that it all hasn't been resolved in final policy yet.
Right.
So I just want to be clear that now you've got it in your brain that you'll be looking for this with the ladies or looking for these assessments and these risk notifications, but they're not all implemented yet. So I don't want you to get too far ahead of yourself and look for it or rely on it or otherwise, because it's kind of cart before horse right now. So I just want to make sure you heard Kathy say that.
Oh, yeah.
As far as meeting with the housing partners, if I could have a conversation with you all before you do that, because there's a
Sure.
lot of overlay with grants and money and application process and the like. So I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're not stepping in something that we shouldn't at this juncture. If it's an informational gathering and just getting what their overall concerns are,
I think that's what it was.
that's what you'd be.
Just,
So
yeah,
it was informational, Lori, not
yeah,
discuss, I mean,
factual.
that's what the
I'm
issues
also-
are for them, but
And I'm also wondering if it would be helpful to talk with the DOC transitional housing team first, which is Derek Dovnik and Jill Moore, etc. I agree, Laura. I'm with Lori a little nervous branching out into the areas and more talking to the grant managers too, and going from there.
One of the things that we're always looking for, which isn't always consistently portrayed to us, is what is the criteria for going to some of these places?
Mhm.
And understanding that a little better, which hopefully they can provide too.
and the other thing is, I don't, as much as Derek and that group, I don't know how forthcoming they would be with some of the other providers. I mean, I think there's information out there. Just say, like I said, what are you doing? What are the criteria? I'm not looking for, I know, Lori, there's a lot of grants. I know there's a lot of criteria, but sometimes I don't know if we get all the information. If things change, we aren't aware of it.
Well, just so you know, all they do is facilitate the individual's interview with the particular entity to see if they qualify. They handle it. It's not like DOC advocates or otherwise. They just connect
Right.
them. We defend these cases all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm talking about this constantly with the court. So there's really no, other than giving them money to run these programs and support the individuals in the community, there's that they're operating separate from DOC. So I don't know that the intel is going to cross over necessarily in the most clear way that I think you guys are looking for. But yeah, I don't want to wreck the situation, and always good to ask for information. But
Yeah.
I don't know that they align in the way that maybe your head has them right now. That's all. I just didn't want you to be disappointed because there's a disconnect there, and to even get on the waiting list is one thing, but then DOC is still holding it, the 16 because they're on the wait list. So in any event,
Well, and,
Just
and
wanted-
in talking with the folks from the transitional housing units, that's important too, which we otherwise wouldn't have a chance to do. So
yeah. Well, DOC is constantly ordered by, and they do it a lot on their own. I don't want to imply that judges have to order them to do it. They do it a lot on their own and connect them with the community providers based on their sentencing, whatever's required of them or their analysis of them. But it's not always there's very little DOC has control of once it gets into the hands of the program people. Because they're obviously the ones that would be issuing the housing process rehabilitation to the individual. So I don't want you guys to get into a duel over information when it comes to the community partners, because you guys are receiving it after it's already been put
Got it.
together and processed by DOC. So I just don't
Yep.
want you to get too far askew with the intel because you won't have any control over that, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
So,
Good point. Thank you.
all right.
Anything else for the committee? Okay.
We'll get a hold of MJ when we
Yep.
decide
Okay.
a date
And
and
we'll
time
look for
to
your
get together.
first report then before the meeting next month.
You will.
Thank you. Okay, next up is interrupts, just kind of let's go back and review that a little bit. And I know we're obviously seeing a lot of cases where folks are on interrupts, and we're seeing people that are eligible for being released again on parole. So, and that's part of the information that comes to us. And as we've discussed in the past, I think one of the things that's critically important is when there's an interrupt, there is most always a case staffing report. And it's important to make sure that we review the case staffing report. There's a lot of information that goes into it that isn't always included in the parole summary and gives you a better understanding of why there is an interrupt in place and what it means in terms of moving forward with this particular offender. If we're seeing someone who has a short period of time left in an interrupt and it's clear DOC is planning for their release and we are interviewing them and we find that we agree with that, there's absolutely no reason not to grant parole. Typically, it doesn't change the timeline for their release, but certainly it's not an automatic say no, but it's one where the board should use its discretion to consider release planning and a decision as to whether parole makes sense or not. And using our structured decision-making framework and helping us be consistent there is very helpful. But again, I find the most helpful piece of information often comes from the case staffing.
Yeah.
And through that, when the interrupt was placed, what the reasons were, and the decision coming out of that case staffing often includes what needs to be done prior to them being released again. Sam, did you have other thoughts or concerns or?
I just brought this up and wanted to add it to the agenda because last week,
Yeah.
Pat, Wayne, and I had a hearing and it was an interrupt. And for me, all three of us were on different pages on whether we could override it or not. The person had 2 or 3 weeks left, but we were all under different impressions with what the board could do or couldn't do. So
Yeah.
I thought it was important for everybody to just be on the same page.
Oh, sure.
So that's kind of why I brought it up.
Yeah.
When that
Pat?
happens and there's only a short time left and DOC is supporting the release, why doesn't DOC just say, we're gonna stop the interrupt?
They-
They have that capacity. So
It's a
why
central
wouldn't
office, it's a central office decision, Pat, they'd have to say something.
Okay, but why
so
wouldn't
Pat, they set a time frame when they did that
Yeah.
interrupt. So they are release planning to that date of that end date. So they are not going to stop the interrupt. They're just planning for release on whatever the date that interrupt ends. So do you want me to give a little more information from last week's and what we were kind of dealing with? Is that a little more helpful?
Sure.
Doesn't
Whatever.
matter. I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands that when release planning is taking place and there is a short time left on the interrupt, that doesn't mean we're not going to grant parole. That
Right.
if you find that everything is in place and you want to move forward with parole, that the interrupt is a DOC function, which has a lot of bearing on where this case is going. And that's why I say the case staffing is very helpful. So if the interrupt is nearing its end and you're seeing them because it's their anniversary of their minimum sentence date or whatever, they have a new one, then using the structured decision-making, reviewing the case staffing, make your decision on that information and not just because they're on an interrupt. certainly if
And-
it's a lengthy interrupt and there's a lot to be done yet, that weighs heavily on our decision.
And Pat,
Well-
they're not gonna stop their interrupt, their release planning to the end of the interrupt. That's why
Okay.
they may be coming forward with more of a release plan, because they're working, they start release planning prior to the end of the interrupt. They don't wait for the interrupt to end and then start
Right.
release planning.
So
Well, I would disagree with you, MJ, because I would have to say the majority of these that we've wrestled with, there's been no release planning, and that's one of the step backs that I think myself and a couple other people have said. It's appeared to me that when they see interrupt, they say, we're not working on this case till that interrupt's done, and here's well,
It
I
depends.
know what I know, I know what I see.
depends. It depends on the time frame. I think that's what you're looking at. It really
yeah.
depends on the time frame. They're not going to be release planning 6 to 9 months ahead of time. They're going
I'm
to,
talking
and a
about
lot of the
short
times
timers.
they
I'm talking
will.
about short timers.
We've seen a lot of short timers that they're release planning for.
Yeah, I have to. Sam?
Sam, what did we see last
All
week?
right,
3
All right.
weeks.
I'm just
It was
gonna put
3
it out there
weeks.
now. So it was 3 weeks, so it was 180-day interrupt, and he was done in 3 weeks, and the caseworker and probation officer, the release plan was done, everything was done, and they presented it to the board as the
Right.
only reason he's in is because of his interrupt. The probation officer said that he was comfortable with the release plan. He said there's more thought into it than he's seen. So when we talked about it, I think the issue was that one of us was under the impression we cannot override interrupts at all. One of us said it was within a time frame, and then the other one had another understanding. So that was the issue that I think we ran into. So it was really just what can we do and when do we use discretion why I wanted to talk about it.
Sure, absolutely. Great.
All
So
right, I'm done.
if we granted parole to
Mhm.
someone who's on an interrupt, even like Sam said, it's 3 weeks, do we grant parole to take effect at the end of their interrupt?
I think we asked that last week and we were told we don't have the authority to do that. It's you can do it now or you don't do it
You'd
at
have to
all.
you'd have to set a special condition to set it at the end of the interrupt.
So in this case,
Or-
was housing was approved or was it required?
It was
was-
required.
He was going to Valley Vista and then he was going to Turning Point.
And that had all been set up?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have at that point, he didn't have a report date to any of that because they were waiting
No.
for it until to closer to the end of the interrupt.
Yeah.
So he did not have a report date. So it was going to take some time to get him into Valley Vista and so forth.
I guess if that was the plan going forward, then parole granted with those conditions would make sense.
I've had a few over the last few months, short timers, and PO even says, you know, if it wasn't for an interrupt that he'd be out. He has a residence, he has everything else set up. If he had 3 or 4 weeks left, I would have no trouble paroling him. I mean, the interrupt is a corrections thing, not nothing to do with us, but we can look at it certainly. But if somebody has everything set up, if they want to eat your pound of flesh, fine. But my thing would be if he's been there, he's done what he's supposed to, done the program, whatever they had set up, he has a place to live, employment, everything's going forward. I don't see any reason why you can't parole him.
When there's a lengthy interrupt, there's typically
Most
no
different.
release planning started yet, and that's clear.
Right.
And you know, we're pretty good about following that guideline, and the case staffing report supports it, and our structure supports it. When there's a short amount of time left and there is planning in place, that's when you have to look at.
The one thing I haven't heard any of you mention on all of this is when there's release planning or not, are you looking to see if there are pending criminal charges for the individual? There's a sanctions grid where they get plugged in, whether it's 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, or 4.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't, I want to I'll have MJ send me the name of the individual that they were trying to get out on 3 weeks, because that's a PO trying to undermine central office case staffing. Then that's not acceptable. And that's going to be confusing to you all. So
It was
we
very
are
confusing.
seeing some of that activity where the
Yeah.
local office feels differently, but central, this is the authority of that is in the central
Yeah.
office case staffing. And I can't defend it if it doesn't run through the process correctly. So if the PO is trying to undermine the period, then that should be a red flag to you, something's going on to begin with. So I think in that sense, Wayne, that should have been a red flag to you. But as far as the length of the interrupt, they have to plug them into that grid somewhere, and it can get aggravated up or mitigated down. But usually it doesn't matter if it's 1 year, 2 years, or 4 years. If there's pending charges, they have to resolve those first. They're not furlough eligible. So I
we
would just
don't-
caution you guys to don't
So
overlook
Lori,
that.
if there's
We
pending
never
criminal
even
charges,
consider
that's right
anybody
on the
with
report.
pending charges.
Yeah.
That's shocking for me to hear that you don't even consider that they have pending charges.
Oh,
Wow.
We,
Well,
Good to
no,
know.
no, no.
We
You're
always
not
consider
hearing.
that.
You're not hearing what we're saying.
We never, they're pending charges, we never,
That's a roadblock right there. If
That's-
there's a
right there, they're
pending
yeah.
done to the
that's it.
charges
That's
are
a big
done.
red
Yeah.
flag.
If there are pending charges, it's just we walk away, done.
Right.
They're not eligible for parole, period.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I believe this was a minimum where this one had, I just sent you the name, Lori. I believe that he had pending charges that were resolved and he got a new minimum and he was coming back before the board for a new minimum.
Yeah, so those come through our team. So we know
Yeah.
about those. So if those get changed or altered or otherwise, the interrupt is reduced, then there's another layer there before that should be in the paperwork for you guys to read when you get it. My
Right.
concern is not about what you're doing. And my concern is that you guys are not getting all the complete information in your packet or misunderstanding where they are in the process and just looking at an interrupt number. So, but that could just be me listening to you guys in pieces.
I
But
don't
I
think
want, yeah, I just want to be clear
Yeah.
that the release planning will start in advance of, and I forget what the policy said, it's either 60 or 90 days in advance of the release date. They're obligated to. So again, we defend cases when they don't do that timely. So.
And in most cases that I can recall sitting on, and I know we had a couple this past month, even ones with 4 or 5 months and they're starting the release planning, we make it clear to them that we're not granting parole today. When the release planning is complete and the interrupt is up, then we'll see them.
Right.
But there are cases where there's just a short period of time left and the release planning is complete and there seems to be no other issues that we will move forward with parole. But typically, because there are contingencies like residence, approved housing, that kind of thing, they aren't going to take place until after the interrupt is complete.
I don't
Well,
know that go ahead, Lori.
No, go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
I don't know that the release planning was complete. It was proposed he was going to go to Valley Vista, then Turning Point.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's not complete. That's if you parole him, this is what he's going to do.
Well,
But I
and you
don't-
guys are seeing this, you just discussed it earlier. I mean, there's sometimes a delay.
Yeah.
So that, they can approve it, they can go through the application process and get accepted, then they still have to sit there and wait, which if a bed comes available, I have not seen DOC step in the way of that.
Right.
So they're trying to get ahead of it probably faster than the POs want sometimes because they know these waiting lists and these locations are difficult to maneuver.
Right.
So
And you
it's
can make
it's a
the
slippery
condition,
slope.
Pat, that it's contingent on their being accepted and going directly to.
And have a residence.
Right.
Good. Other thoughts? Sam, any other thoughts or questions?
No, I didn't
Clear.
mean to cause chaos. I just
Oh,
wanted us
no,
to
it's
all
good
be
to
on
have
the
this
same
discussion.
page of what we can and can't do and what are we looking for.
Doesn't
Absolutely.
It's
cause
not
Clear as mud,
chaos,
Sam.
Sam.
Clear
It's
as
not
mud.
chaos. It's good information. It's good stuff.
Absolutely.
Because I was kind of confused on that too. Like, when can we interrupt one? When can't, I get
Right.
it. confused on that too, so it's not
I would much,
chaos.
I would much rather have these discussions here
Absolutely.
than,
Then during a hearing.
yes, because honestly, when we have the deliberatives and it throws, I think deliberatives are good, and I think it's great that you all are deliberating, but oftentimes when you guys have it out in the deliberative, sometimes on some of these policy issues, it sets a tone for the rest of the hearing day. And you guys may not realize it, but us that are looking on can definitely tell the changes in your affects. So I just want to put that out there, that when you deliberate and have some of these policy discussions, be aware that sometimes it changes how you come back from the deliberative and how you present for the rest of the hearing sometimes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
it's interesting to be an onlooker. Sometime maybe I would suggest sometimes coming and watching and observing the hearings just to see how they go, or if you ever want to watch them back, go in the chat and watch one back and just see. I think it's always good to watch ourselves from time to time to note how we do things. Feedback is good.
As long as
Anything-
we're all on the same page about it, I'm good with this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
Yeah.
wanted
exactly.
to talk about it.
Well, a key thing too is, like I said, the case staffing report and your structured form. And to be consistent in what you're deciding and look at everything. And if there's a piece of information missing, then make sure you get that. Great. Okay. H342, MJ, did you want to review that?
I just wanted to put it out there real quick just to let you all know that the only legislative bill right now that I'm seeing with any legs that has parole board in it. Sam actually brought this to my attention. Is that there is a bill titled non-disclosure of it's regarding non-disclosure of certain public servant personal information. It's a bill around identifying it's so confusing to me to have your like personal addresses and so forth. I would suggest reading the bill, but it's a way to get your names off of some databases. It's in reaction to a bill in New Jersey, some law in New Jersey, where I think it was a judge
It was a
was
judge, yeah.
killed. So the parole board members weren't included. PMP officers were originally included. It includes the judiciary, judges, attorneys, and so forth. I had submitted some feedback to House Judiciary and House Commerce, who are reviewing the bill. The bill lives in Commerce. And Commerce did put you all in. They originally put you under a PMP officer definition, but I have since I since gave them feedback and they put you in as your own line
Okay.
item.
The funny part was the Defender Generals, when they were testifying, they said, we don't want it. We don't, they're saying we knew nothing about it. We don't care. We don't really want to be included.
This is going up in the House today, to see if it passes the House. So I'll keep an eye on it, but I just wanted to just put it on everybody's radar that this is the only thing that I'm seeing right now that's got really any legs to it.
When the Defender General, Matt Valerio, goes, and I told this to Dean this morning, is that he said in testimony, somebody comes into Rutland, wants to know where Matt Valerio lives, so go, oh, he lives over here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it's going to really make much of an impression. I mean, it's a feel-good bill is what it is.
And I'm really not understanding how you remove something from a database. It's there, it's been there, it's always gonna be there from here on out. Maybe you're not gonna put it, but research is gonna give it to you anyway.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
So on another note, MJ, I know we've talked a number of times. I don't think there's anything going on right now, but earn time is still a problem for us. And it doesn't look like the legislature is going to address that this year.
It has not, I have not seen anything move with earn time yet this year. Maybe that's something we can I think this might be a good topic to talk. I haven't had a chance after you sent me my note, after you sent me the note regarding the increase in St. J. I'm going to start setting up monthly meetings with Cassidy and Mark to talk about issues that we're having, so I can bring that up. But if folks are choosing to stay on furlough for earned time, I don't think there's a lot we can do about it.
No, I agree. I just, I think statutorily, that was not the intent of earned time, and it could easily be corrected. That's the concern I have. Yeah.
I think that they tried last year. There was a lot of victim outcry, and and they studied it this summer, and the victim outcry and the feedback around the the automated notification system, the VAN system, really kind of put it all to a halt. And I don't know where that's at, but I've been watching and I haven't seen it take up. I do know there is a bill hanging around that would make it even worse for earned time and make it even more nuanced.
So every month with the earned time, they get a new notification because their minimum changed?
I think you can opt out of those. I don't know how
Yeah.
I don't know all the details of earned time. I'm definitely
It
not
would be a help
an
in that.
expert.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else legislatively?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay. Hearing facilitation, timing of hearings, MJ?
I just wanted to do just a quick little plea to all of you to be patient with the hearings. We have a lot of changes. We have a lot of postponements. For the most part, you all are. But whether it's Colby or I facilitating, we're doing everything we can to keep these going as efficiently as possible. We're already looking 2 steps ahead about maybe moving cases. So I would just ask, I know sometimes that you all want to get things going, but we're trying our best. And sometimes little reminders, we might get a little irritated at you. I know I have a couple times where it's like, can't you move so and so? It's like, I'm already working on it. And then I think I snapped at Pat and said, do you want to do this, Pat? Because there's a lot going on between sending paperwork. So just know that we've got it going. We've got it going in the background. And also I want you just to be aware that I'm trying really to keep our relationship with DOC and the attorneys the best that we can. Because right now the relationship, there's a lot of policies and procedures around DOC and court access, and there's some tension around there. So I don't want to stress our relationship with DOC if I can help it. I want to keep it positive and working well. So sometimes I will not try to push to get some of those minimums on if we have a break, just because I don't want them coming to us and saying, these are the strict rules that you need to apply by, because right now everything seems to be going well, and they're on listening, and they're doing their best in the background too.
Yeah.
They try to help out as much as they can.
Yep.
I think having like key people at each site works great when you have that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to just remind everybody that we're trying to keep our relationship well, because I don't think any of us really want to see a directive that comes out of parole hearing access from DOC dictating how we're going to do these. So let's try to just be patient.
I am very patient.
Thank you.
Yep.
Early release, Michael DeCroce.
Yes.
Has everybody had a chance to review that case?
There wasn't much to read.
Well, he's been on parole for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, here the comment was no issues.
He's almost at the 6-month term anyway, but
Right.
not quite.
Almost there.
So assuming everyone has had a chance to review that, I would entertain a motion to schedule him for an early release hearing.
I'll make a motion that we schedule him for a hearing.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any other discussion on the case? None? All in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. SDMF update. Out-of-state cases.
Sam.
MJ,
Oh, God.
Sam.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot today.
Yeah, that's good.
So I just wasn't sure. We had a case last week was a hot mess. I just didn't know. So the case that we saw last week, he was in federal custody. Once he maxed there, he was coming to Vermont to finish his sentence and then going to Connecticut to complete a sentence.
Wow.
I think because Alicia's cleaning up these cases, we're seeing more of them, or at least that's,
Mhm.
I haven't seen many of these. I just didn't know if we needed to do an SDMF form for something like that, where they're in federal custody and then they're coming back here and then they're going to another state. So it's just something that I thought about last week when I saw him, because I think we've had, at least I have the last couple of months, at least one a month. So I just wasn't sure if we needed to do SDMF for those cases or what the thoughts were.
I want to be clear that these are not the cases that are out in Mississippi. These are the
Right.
ones, these are on the, because there's 2 out-of-state head counts. These are the ones that are in another state
Yeah.
because of, they have another
Okay.
sentence there or something. They're not getting the same case planning that the Mississippi guys are getting.
So was he on parole for his federal sentence?
I think he was serving
No.
a federal sentence.
So
He was in federal custody serving a federal sentence.
And
Yeah,
then
he's
the
in a,
They
previous,
reduced his federal sentence because of Trump. It got reduced, so now his Vermont sentence is longer than his federal sentence. His
Oh.
federal sentence was going to be longer than Vermont,
Okay.
but that got changed. So when he was done with his federal sentence, he was returning to Vermont, but he
Was
still
he-
was wanted in Connecticut.
Was he paroled on a detainer to his federal sentence?
no.
So these are the cases where, they have a long, Pat explained, so he had a longer federal sentence and a Vermont sentence, so he went to the feds to serve his sentence. His Vermont sentence was concurrent.
Okay.
So he was just in federal custody serving both sentences at the same time.
Yeah.
And they had the controlling sentence because they had the longer
Right.
time.
Right.
And so we paroled him.
No,
No.
Did we?
No, he was granted clemency, so his federal sentence was gonna be shorter than the Vermont. So once
Okay.
he maxes his federal sentence,
He's coming
he'll
back.
be extradited back to Vermont to complete his Vermont sentence. And
Okay.
then Connecticut wants him to fulfill his sentence down there.
So
So
we-
why was he in front of the board?
Because he had met his minimum on
Minimum.
his Vermont
On
sentence, so
his
he had to have a
Vermont
minimum
sentence.
hearing.
Oh, okay. I was confused. Like, why was the board even seeing him if
Right.
he's
I
just,
did
if
too.
all it is he's coming back to now?
So he's
I did
denied
the
parole at
assessment
this
just for
time.
the information. just
And
for
if he goes
gathering
to
the
Connecticut, it would
information
be
on
a parole to Connecticut hearing that we would, on a detainer, if they filed one with him at some point down the road.
I don't
Right.
even, I'd
Well,
have to
I
get
think
my
I
notes,
think we're
but-
getting into the weeds a little bit. I think more
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
question that Sam was asking is because these guys, these individuals are in another jurisdiction with,
SDMF.
let's just say, just look at the big picture, not this individual case. If somebody's in Fed custody with a longer sentence in Vermont, they're coming before the board for their minimum hearing. Do we need to do an SDMF on those because they're not having the same services, they're not getting the same case planning that they would if they were in Vermont? I think that's the question that
Yeah.
Sam's asking.
And I would say no in that case.
I'd say no, absolutely. It's-
Okay.
So for any of the cases on the OOS head count, unless we're paroling them to the detainer, we don't do SDMFs for.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good question. Programming coding follow-up from last month?
I took that off because I
I'm
haven't
sorry?
followed up.
Okay. We'll review that next month.
Yep.
We wanted to talk a little bit about the April schedule since the last part of, actually it's May, the last part of May, we're going to be at the APAI conference, a couple of us. Do we want to make any changes in the May schedule, or do we think we can manage it otherwise?
That would be both of the
So-
Newport.
That would be, yeah.
So it's gonna be May 20, it's gonna be the two Newport days, and I
Right.
don't know, Dean, you're coming back on
Yeah, I
Tuesday,
would
so I
be
don't
here
know
for
if,
Thursday. Yeah,
okay. So it's the two Newport days, I think it's the 20th and the 21st,
21st.
just to see if we had enough enough board members to cover. I just wanted to get people thinking about it if we needed to
Yeah.
move those hearing days.
I'm around.
okay,
I'm
days?
available.
The 20,
May 20th and 21st.
2021.
what is that? One of those a Wednesday or
It's a Tuesday and a
Tuesday and
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
a Wednesday? I would not be available. Well, hang on a second. So the 21st, let me grab my other calendar. Hang on a second.
I just wanted to think ahead
Yeah.
in case we needed to make bigger adjustments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wayne, what do you think?
I should be around. I don't
Okay.
know, it might be in my moving date, but we can always make it work.
Okay. Sam?
I think
He's
I'm
looking.
available both of the
Yeah.
days.
The 21st, I
as
would be
well.
available as long as we're done before 12:45.
Okay,
I'm available both days.
okay. I think we're fine, MJ.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to double check.
I just got
So,
the
and-
agenda for that. Did you get it too, Dean?
What's that?
Like the
Yes, I
different
did.
training things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
there's a couple of them that look really interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's one of them that we're helping out with.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you didn't know that? You haven't got your preparation done?
Wait, me? Am
No,
I involved? Oh, thank
Of
God.
course.
Of
I
course.
mean, I've certainly done enough trainings in my life, but like if I'm gonna give one, I need to know.
There you
well,
go.
we don't know 100% yet, but
We'll
gonna
be
be a
ready.
Wing it,
surprise.
you'll be fine.
You'll be in good company for it. Okay, let's take a look at the April schedule. I've got Katie and Sam's and Tom's information. Wayne, and I've got Pat's. Wayne?
I'm good for anything.
Good for anything.
Please,
Okay.
no more rescheduling that guy.
Although I just got an invitation on don't know how I didn't see it last night, but I had an invitation to go walleye fishing today with a new guy I met down here, and I'm going, no!
Oh, wow.
Tell them 12 o'clock.
Cool. All right, I think I'm all set for the schedule then. I'll get working on. Did we want to try to shoot for an in-person meeting next month, or
in April,
you want to wait till May?
it doesn't matter to me.
It's school vacation.
And that's,
Yeah.
I don't even know, like it's still determined yet if I'm even gonna be available that day yet or not.
Okay.
Well,
Well, let's
I
hold
may
off
be
to
gone
May then.
that day too. I don't
Well,
know.
again,
And
I mean,
I
we've got 2 weeks off in April, so it's
Let's
completely
shoot
up
for
to the
May
two
then.
of you. It could be the 22nd or it could be the 29th, either way.
remember, I won't be
If we
available. I
move
won't
it to the
be,
29th, I'm available.
I won't be available for the meeting because I'll be at a wonderful other meeting. So
Yeah, and I'm not going to be
Which
available.
one,
Well, I
Tom?
guess I am.
29th
29th is
that's
Thursday,
in
right?
April, the 22nd. I won't be available.
what day?
Sounds like a bunch of us might not be.
29th is what day? Is that a Thursday?
It's a
that's
Tuesday.
29th is a Tuesday. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we have 2
So-
weeks off and we have 2 weeks of no hearings in April just because of the way the months fell. The days
So-
fell, I mean.
At this point in time, who can't make the in-person on the 29th?
29th? Yes.
29th.
Wayne
And Sam.
and Sam. That's right.
Do we just want to, I mean, do we want to just shoot for the 27th of May? And just do the
I think
first one
so.
in May? I think that would be easier.
Yeah.
I can make a
I do
meeting
too.
I can make the meeting on the 29th.
Well, since there's at least two people that can't, let's shoot for our first in-person being in May, then we'll go from.
But are we moving the meeting from the
April.
24th to the 29th? Or no?
The 22nd to the
Or
29th.
the 22nd to the, or are we keeping it the 22nd?
22nd is hearing, isn't it?
No, 22nd is staff meeting.
Oh, that's
It's
May.
April
I'm sorry.
staff
School
meeting.
vacation.
I've got the May schedule up still. Okay. never
How
mind.
many of us can't do the 22nd?
I may be going on vacation. We're not We haven't finalized it yet.
How about this? How about I'd like to make a suggestion that we just cancel April altogether. Have a month where we can have a little bit longer to work on things. We could ask DOC to come in May to an in-person staff meeting and just reconvene in May.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Okay.
So we
I'll let
cancel
everybody
all of
catch up.
April, MJ?
I'm canceling staff meeting in April.
Oh.
I would love a month just to be able to work. That would be
That's not
great
gonna
if
happen.
I could just have a work. But 2
Is that-
weeks will be even better to be able to just sit and maybe get some stuff that I've got in my head, maybe on
That-
paper.
It's that pesky liberty issue, you know, you have to deal
And
with.
then when you guys come back in May, maybe I'll
Way
have some
overrated, though.
deliverables for you all, and I will keep you all day.
Sounds good.
Ooh, ooh, that doesn't sound good.
When it's that far out, it's not a problem. And that'll be after the APAI conference too, so we can kind of report
Brief
back
on
on
stuff.
that. Yeah. Good.
Is-
Okay, let's do that.
Sam?
Is APAI available online, like to be streamed or broad, anything? No, okay.
No. But we can, sometimes I get the slides and stuff. If we get the slides, I can share them with everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything for today?
Nope.
Very good. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
thanks. And
Motion
Tom
to
and
adjourn?
Wayne will be in touch.
Take, let us
Motion
know.
to-
Yep.
And
Motion
Anytime.
to
anytime.
adjourn?
Motion to
Okay, we're gonna
adjourn.
get back
Second.
at it.
Second,
Second,
second by Pat, all in favor to adjourn, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
you
Too.
You as
too.
well.
MJ, we'll be in touch with you about setting up a Teams room for us.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Just let me
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone.
I'll
Have a
talk
good
to you
day.
soon.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.